Hey guys, Josh Mosman here from Motocross Action Magazine, and in this video, we are gonna dive into and ride Andy Jefferson's factory Cylinder Works 366 big bore GASGAS 4-stroke. This thing is very, very trick. It's littered with factory parts that you cannot buy. It's got lots of parts that you can buy that are pretty exotic as well. It's a big bore 350. It's for guys who want the 350 power that's easy to ride and manageable, but want just a little bit more torque, a little more power. Andy Jefferson, he works for KTM, Husqvarna GASGAS, for the whole KTM group. He has access to the coolest parts and the coolest bikes. And this bike, he put everything he wanted onto this motorcycle, and it's a pretty cool machine. We got to ride it, and in this video, we're gonna break down what he did to this bike, why he made those mods, and how they work on the track. So before we dive into the bike, we got to talk a little bit about the rider of this GASGAS 366 4-stroke. No matter how you slice it, Andy Jefferson is an icon of the sport of motocross, and he was handpicked by Pro Circuit's Mitch Payton to carry the Husqvarna banner for Mitch's team almost 40 years ago. Andy was used to riding a borrowed bike from a friend's Victorville Suzuki shop and paying for all of his expenses out of his winnings. Andy was shocked the first day he went to Pro Circuit and they gave him 2 brand new bikes, a box full of spare parts, and new riding gear. To this day, Andy believes that he owes Mitch Payton and Husqvarna a debt of gratitude for believing in him. Andy paid Mitch Payton back by giving it his all in every race that he entered, and most of all, Andy put his name in the AMA record books by being the Jackie Robinson of motocross. What does that mean? He was the first ever black racer to make Supercross main events, and this was during a time when privateers didn't make main events. Andy Jefferson was decades before James Stewart arrived on the scene, and he was leading the way. Unfortunately, a series of knee injuries ended his AMA pro career a little bit early, although he did keep racing on works races, off-road races, and desert races. Andy's long history as a racer made him a valuable asset for Husqvarna, and it was something that KTM recognized when they bought Husqvarna back from BMW in 2013. Now, Andy Jefferson is the media relations manager for KTM, Husqvarna, and GASGAS. When MXA caught wind of Andy Jefferson's 2022 GASGAS MC366F, we knew this would be a special bike because Andy has access to every engine, ignition, throttle body, cylinder head, works forks, flywheel, crank, brakes, and trick part on the market. Although Andy Jefferson's personal GASGAS race bike bristles with parts, nothing reveals his biggest secret, and that is the 366 big bore Cylinder Works engine with a heavier crank, works transmission, and milled off-road works cylinder head. On the outside, for all to see, are the 52mm works WP forks, 30mm front axle, WP track shock, and Brembo factory brake calipers. As for the engine, the Cylinder Works kit takes the GASGAS MC350F from 349.7 cc's up to 366 cc's. The $650 big bore kit comes with a brand new cast cylinder, a 2mm larger Vertex piston kit, and Cometic gaskets. It is a bolt-on kit that ups the bore from 88mm to 90. On the track, the GASGAS MC366 is beefier from low to mid. When you want to go faster, you just wick it up and the rush is insane. The Twisted Development ECU works to let it rev high enough that your eyes water. Andy swapped out the stock head stays for FCP's aluminum head stays because the big bore 360 engine and heavier off-road crank needed a little bit of help in absorbing some of the added loads. The Nihilo Concepts one-piece billet titanium foot pegs are wider than stock and they're lighter than factory pegs. They're made with aerospace grade titanium and they come with an aerospace price tag of $800 a set. The stock Brembo brakes on the GASGAS 350 are great, but The Works brakes calipers are even stronger with less flex and more stopping power, and they cost $1,000 a piece. The handlebars are Pro Taper's Suzuki Race Team bend, and the Suzuki bend is low and straight, which actually works pretty well with the Power Parts PHDS rubber cushion bar mounts. No one outside of the KTM, Husky, or GASGAS factory team can get a Works chain guide, but luckily, Lightspeed Carbon makes an exact replica of the Unobtainium factory guide. The Lightspeed chain guide includes the extended tail of the Works chain guide's shell to keep the chain on the rear sprocket. As for the WP forks, they are 52mm forks, and they are another Unobtainium product on this bike. The aluminum down tubes are hard coated to make the alloy more durable. The internals aren't that much different from the 48mm WP cone valves that you can buy, but the purpose behind the 52mm forks was increased rigidity, which helps out for pro riders who want direct feedback at their hands. To work with the factory forks is the Power Parts factory triple clamps, and they actually are different from normal factory split triple clamps in that they have been machined to accept the larger oversized 52mm fork legs. Also, with the 52mm fork legs, you have to run a jumbo size 30mm front axle. So the whole movement to increase rigidity in the front end results in WP upsizing the front axle, and this requires different fork lugs, different axle nuts, and wheel spacers. As for the rear wheel, the hub is stock. It doesn't use an oversized axle, but it does have a polished hub with updated spokes and rim. To protect Andy Jefferson's one-off engine, he installed a Power Parts carbon fiber skid plate that bolts on directly using the mounting tabs. The $207 skid plate is made from 3mm thick, high-strength carbon fiber sheet molding, and it has rubber inlays to cushion the frame wear as well. Talking a little bit about the rear axle, the stock KTM, Husky, and GASGAS bikes have rear axles with the right side axle block actually threaded onto the axle. So according to the factory race teams, solidly linking the axle to the axle blocks actually makes it a little more rigid at the rear end, and it's actually a little bit of a safety hazard, as well as these have broken in the past. So they also don't allow the rear axle to move freely under a load. It kind of binds up the rear end. So the factory bikes, they have one-off rear axles that are specially made from aluminum to make those bikes work freely in the rear end, while Works Connection, they make something for the rest of us. It's an exact replica of what you see on the factory Husky, GASGAS, and KTM bikes, and they retail for 90 bucks. So how does the engine work? The MC366 power band had nothing in common with the stock GASGAS MC350F engine. Every test rider said that the GASGAS 350 felt like a completely different motorcycle. It's easier to ride the 366 in the mid-range now because it makes a lot more horsepower than the stock 350. But the most significant difference about the 366 is that the peak horsepower is brought down from 12,400 RPM to 10,000 RPM on this bike. So the biggest horsepower gains with the big bore kit are from 6,000 to 10,000 RPM. And for riders who don't want to rev their 350 to the moon, this helps out a ton because they get a lot more grunt off the bottom and a lot more grunt in the mid-range, where you don't have to rev it super high to get the meat of the 350 power. One note is that you actually can race with the Cylinder Works 366 kit with the stock GASGAS ECU mapping, but Andy Jefferson has a lot of tools in his toolbox, and he sent off the ECU to Twisted Development and had them tune the ECU to perfection for this 366. Twisted Development set up a 10-map Vortex ignition, and we actually had to switch up to different maps to get a little bit cleaner performance on our day of testing on this bike. We believe that the Twisted map and Vortex ignition helped the 366 reach its full potential, but, and this is a big but, it's an extra $1,000 to get it remapped with a Vortex ECU. To also contribute to the power, Andy combined a Works carbon fiber velocity stack from the KTM race team bikes with a Twin Air KTM Power Flow kit. So Twin Air's aluminum cage, wireless design, and larger volume air filter increase the throttle response even more on this 366 from GASGAS. So MXA, we've always felt like selling 3 different 350 models was kind of a waste for KTM, GASGAS, and Husky. Really, the KTM Husky GASGAS have to compete against each other for potential 350 buyers, and it would make more sense if one of the three had a different engine with a different style of power. For example, a production Husqvarna FC370 would set Husky apart from GASGAS and KTM, and it would also produce a torquier, less revvy style of power that would work great for vet and off-road riders alike. And this is exactly why we liked Andy Jefferson's personal GASGAS MC366. It was different in every way possible. Overall, MXA has a lot of fun riding factory bikes, riding stock bikes, and also riding bikes that are like this one from Andy Jefferson, where he has countless and unlimited possibilities at his fingertips. This GASGAS 366 was everything that he wanted. Hopefully, this article and this video on Andy Jefferson's bike inspires you to maybe pick up one of these parts or all of these parts for your own GASGAS 350 build. We really liked riding this bike. It was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for tuning in to this video. If you want to know more about this motorcycle, check out motocrossactionmag.com. We have the full article about it on there. Also, subscribe to the Motocross Action YouTube channel and click the notification button so you can get an update every time we release a new video. We got factory bikes, top privateer bikes, stock bikes, two-strokes, and project bikes like this one that we're reviewing on our website. So we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.